Sam Frost here, and in today's video I want to talk to you about the importance of understanding a concept that I call the promotional pyramid. So when you were at school you probably learned about the food pyramid, that simple pyramid that showed you in three categorizations or groupings what you should eat the most of, what you should eat some of, and what you should try to avoid, basically. Well, there's the same kind of principle in some respects applies in marketing. So the promotional pyramid, just like the food pyramid, is a triangle or a pyramid that consists of three components. But unlike the food pyramid, it's kind of flipped on its head. So at the bottom of the promotional pyramid are the people you want to avoid selling to. Now, you want to avoid selling or at least marketing to these people because they're often a poor fit. So what I mean by this is, let's say that you have a premium product, you have a luxury product or a high-end brand, and you find that your marketing is reaching lots of people who are cheapie seekers or freebie seekers or who just want a bargain. There's not really very good alignment there, so it's always going to be a massively uphill battle to convince someone who wants to spend $10 on a product that they should actually go out and spend $100. Another example of where people fall into the bottom of the promotional pyramid is if they're in the wrong geography. So it's not uncommon to see people not really understanding how the location targeting works on, say, Google Ads. And if you only operate in one particular area, let's say you only sell in Christchurch, New Zealand, and your ads are actually running to people in Dunedin or Wellington or Auckland, well, that's an example of someone who shouldn't see your advertising. They're in the bottom of the pyramid because unless they hop on a plane or jump on the car and drive on to the ferry and come across the islands to see you, they're not actually going to become a particularly good customer. So that bottom of the pyramid are the people you want to avoid. Moving on, you've got the middle of the pyramid. So the middle of the pyramid is often where the best money is to be made in the long run, but it's the hardest component to understand and crack in some respects. Now the middle of the pyramid, this is where you find people who basically could be good customers for your product, but aren't necessarily looking to buy something at a given point in time. You could also find people here who have the problem that your solution solves, but aren't necessarily aware that a solution even exists, so haven't even actually thought about buying something. This is a common thing that startups tend to encounter. You've identified something in the marketplace that's an opportunity because your research has showed you that your buyer group suffers from a problem or a challenge, but those people aren't necessarily aware that there's something that could even solve their problem. So that's what sits in the middle. People who have a good alignment to what it is you sell, but just aren't really looking for something right now or sort of haven't got enough urgency behind them. Finally, we move on to the top portion of the pyramid. These are people who are actively looking to buy a product or service right now. This is where you can make the fastest return, but it's often one of the smallest components of the pyramid. That's why a pyramid's shaped the way it is, right? The top of the pyramid, that top slice, is the smallest piece, and often, depending on your industry especially, and this is a big thing to understand if you're in the business-to-business space, is that this top piece of the pyramid can generally be very, very small indeed relative to the rest of the size of the pyramid. So, you might find that very few people are actively looking to buy a product or service right now. So, now that you understand the shape of the pyramid and the basic kind of concept behind the three levels of division within it, why is it important? Why does this promotional pyramid concept actually matter? Well, there's a really simple reason. Basically, if you don't understand how the promotional pyramid works, it's very hard to understand where you should be focusing your marketing effort. Now, I'm going to talk in a bit more detail here, specifically for business-to-business organizations, because that's who I tend to work with in my day job, if you want to call it that, as a digital marketing consultant. I work with business-to-business organizations who are all generally very obsessed or very focused on trying to generate leads at the top of the pyramid. So they want to get in front of people via Google search ads or SEO, for example. They want to get in front of people who are looking for their product or looking for their service at a given point in time. And depending on your industry and what you're selling, that pool of people may be very small indeed, and it may even not really exist at all if you've come up with some sort of innovative new product, like you're a startup business. And so what that means is that you can very quickly exhaust the pool of potential customers, because remember that even if you got every single person who was in your total addressable market in the top slice of the pyramid in a room together at any given point in time, they're not all going to buy from you at once. That just doesn't happen. So your actual number of people you could be selling to at any given point in time can be small indeed if you have a business that doesn't really align well with playing in that top of the pyramid space. Now, if you have a business to consumer offer or a business to business offer that does have that kind of search drive behind it, so there are a lot of people actively researching to buy. Let's say, for example, you sell TVs. There are always people looking to buy TVs, right? You just want to make sure you're reaching the right type of people. So if you're selling high-end TVs, you don't want to advertise to cheapie seekers or bargain hunters. But if someone is wanting to buy a TV, they'll go on Google and they'll type in TVs for sale or best TV deals or those kind of things. That is the top of the pyramid to a T. If you operate in that space, that's fine to focus there. But if your business solves a problem or a challenge, or you're sort of innovating in an industry, you've often got to spend more time thinking about marketing and advertising in the middle of the pyramid. So with that in mind, that's why understanding the promotional pyramid is so important. If you don't get that concept, you can fall into the trap that a lot of businesses I encounter fall into, which is where they're sort of playing in the wrong space. And it can happen in reverse as well. I've seen it where a business could do really, really well out of, say, search-driven advertising to the top of the pyramid, but they're spending way too much time in the middle piece because, they prefer that targeted advertising approach. But actually, if they just tried to fulfill some of the demand that existed on that search side of things, they could generate leads and sales faster. And obviously, there are some businesses that just fall into the bottom part of the pyramid. They spend too much time advertising to the wrong people, and you don't want to be in that category. So with that in mind, let's move on. What do you actually need to do with this knowledge? As I said earlier, for many businesses, especially business-to-business organizations who are selling to specialist customers or startups, that middle section of the pyramid is the money section. That's where you're going to find the largest number of prospects, and your job, your duty, is to actually identify where you can reach them online and offline as well, because offline advertising and marketing still has a lot of value, and then advertise to them in a targeted fashion. So I'm not talking about necessarily going out and plastering billboards in the back of buses and TV and radio ads if you've got a specialist offering that can only be taken up by a relatively small group of people. Obviously, if you have a business to consumer mass market offering, it's a little bit different, but in that case, you're probably not going to be watching this anyway. But let's say that you have a business to business solution, so you're wanting to sell to civil engineers, for example. You want to advertise a product or a solution to civil engineers. Well, then you want to look at where those civil engineers go to consume information. What social networks do they use? Are they on LinkedIn? Can you target them based on their job title and company title and level of experience? Maybe you need to reach senior civil engineers. What publications do they read? If there's a magazine that goes out to all the registered civil engineers in your country or your jurisdiction, is there an online version of that? Could you advertise in the print publication and also advertise in the online publication or the online version of it? I know that that's quite a common thing that a lot of industries have. They have specialist publications, often very good ones and very targeted ones. What videos do they watch on YouTube? What forums do they frequent? What blogs do they read? Your duty, if you identify that your audience sits primarily in the middle part of the pyramid, is to find all of the places online and offline where you could get in front of that target group of people and then identify basically an order of operations as to where you're going to focus your attention first. So if you've identified, for example, that this group you're trying to go after, say civil engineers, is really easy to reach on LinkedIn, and you can do that in a relatively self-service fashion via LinkedIn ads, then that would be a great place to start. But maybe you've got an even more niche audience, or they really need to kind of see your message in the context of a publication that they really know and trust. Well, then you might have to go and identify what's that specialist publication that people are reading. Can I advertise in the print version? Can I advertise on the online version? Maybe it's events even, although events are pretty challenged at the moment, as we know, where your prospective customer attends. They kind of go and get all of their information in one place. This is the hardest part to understand by far. This is where there's the biggest opportunity for gain and also the biggest risk of loss in terms of spending a lot of money and time on things that don't work. But basically think about it this way. Your prospective customer, your target persona, and this is where it is so critical to have a really good understanding of who it is you sell to. Where do they go to find information? Where do they go to learn more about what's happening in their industry? And one piece of advice I'll give here is that this group of people that you're trying to reach in this middle part of the pyramid, because they're often not basically in the active research phase when it comes to buying a product or service, they're just kind of they're in the space based off their alignment, but they're not looking to buy anything. When you go and advertise to them, you can obviously go out with a kind of product or service-led message, but you can often get better results by leading with something like a case study or a white paper. Because what I've found over the years is that specialist buyers, so not a sort of mass market buyer, but a specialist person who are trying to reach based off their industry and job title and seniority level, and sort of series of responsibilities, those people are often interested in knowing how their peers are solving the same challenges they've got, and a case study can be a really good way of doing that. So if you want to advertise to civil engineers on LinkedIn, you could look at leading off with a case study, for example, to create awareness at the top of the funnel, driving those people through to a landing page or a area on your site, maybe gating some content depending on what you've got, or maybe just hitting them with things like remarketing pixels, or at least just creating awareness so that they know you exist. Finally, when it comes to the bottom of the pyramid, and I'll just touch on this piece briefly, what you want to be doing is always focusing on how you can refine your targeting. And that looks like a lot of different things depending on what it is you do. For example, if you're doing search advertising, then make sure that you're looking at your search terms in Google Ads and using negative keywords to actually block the kind of phrases or words that would indicate that there's a customer you don't want. So for example, if you're selling a luxury product and you see things like cheapest X for sale, then maybe blocking the word cheapest would be a good idea, because someone who's looking for something cheap is not probably looking for a luxury option. Another thing you should look at doing is using your messaging and your ad copy to make it very, very clear who it is you want to reach. If you're not too sure what I mean by this, take a look at, say, a luxury car brand like Mercedes or BMW. Their messaging will often make it clear that they want to talk to people who are, shall we say, sitting at the higher end of the market when it comes to looking for a car. So don't kind of send mixed messages. Don't make your advertising copy something that appeals to everybody if you only want to sell to people at the top, or you only want to sell to people in a specific subset of your niche. Basically, this bottom of the pyramid piece is just about understanding who it is you want to sell to, and who it is you want to avoid, and making it clear that you focus your activity on the right people and actually work to exclude the wrong people as well. And that's not being rude or discriminatory or anything like that. That's literally doing the right thing by everybody, because you don't want to waste people's time as well. If someone's looking for a bargain, you don't want them to wind up wasting their time clicking on your ad on Facebook or Google for something that's way out of their price range, because that doesn't really work for anyone. So to conclude and recap, the promotional pyramid is a really important concept to understand if you want to be successful in both digital marketing and just marketing in general. What you need to do to start this process and to really get the most out of the promotional pyramid, above anything else, you have to have a great understanding of your customer. So if you haven't gone and done any work to date around persona building, and I'll leave some resources in the video description for both business to consumer and business to business persona building. If you haven't done anything around that, or you're not quite sure who you need to sell to or who you need to reach, then go and do that piece first. And then once you've done it, work on the promotional pyramid. And what I'll do also in this video description is I will leave a resource that you can download and print out or edit on your computer that will actually allow you to guide yourself through the process of identifying where your business sits on the promotional pyramid. This piece of marketing advice is really, really important to understand, because if you get this right, you're going to spend a lot less time advertising and marketing in the wrong places, and you're going to have much better results because of the fact that you can align your activity to your target customer and where they are at a given point in time. So instead of spending ages trying to run Google search ads for people who aren't searching, you can instead go out and lead with case studies based on what that person would like to see, because you understand the problems and challenges in their industry, and you can get in front of them on platforms like LinkedIn, or the publications they read, or the videos they watch on YouTube via video ads, for example. That's going to have a lot better cut through ultimately than advertising in the wrong places. So understand your customer first, make sure you've got a really good picture of who you are trying to sell to and the problems you solve for them, or what they're looking to buy and what sort of stages of the buying cycle they're at, and then work on actually understanding where your business sits in this promotional pyramid and how you can use this to your advantage. So make sure you check out the video description for those resources I've mentioned. There'll be a lot more context in there. If you've got any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.